South Africa has launched its stewardship of the G20 Finance Track with a call for collective action to address rising global debt vulnerabilities, uneven recovery prospects and the urgent need to strengthen multilateral development banks. In his opening address to the 4th G20 Finance and Central Bank Deputies meeting, Duncan Peterse, the Treasury's Director General, framed the discussions as pivotal in shaping an international financial architecture that would be more stable, effective and resilient. Over the next 2 days, the meeting will tackle pressing issues such as sovereign debt restructuring and pandemic preparedness and set the stage for the G20 Finance Ministers and Central Bank Governors meeting, which is scheduled for Thursday and Friday. South 32 has warned that its aluminium operations in Mozambique are under threat. Electricity to Mosul is supplied under an agreement between the miner, the government and Eskom. That accord comes to an end in March next year. And while the parties have been in discussions for the past 6 years to secure a new deal, to date, nothing has been agreed. That's as the groups can't settle on an affordable electricity price tariff. South 32 says it will continue to engage with the government and Eskom, but given the uncertainty of the site operating beyond March, production guidance is now under review, and the carrying value of Mosul is also being looked at. South 32 expects to book an impairment as a result. ArcelorMittal South Africa's long steel operations are still in trouble. That's despite government support, which included tariffs and a cash injection to keep the business afloat. The closure has been deferred twice as the company and government work to save the 3,500 jobs directly at risk. But the group says limited progress has been made in addressing major structural problems, including high electricity costs, poor rail service and a lack of growth projects for steel. AMSA says it can no longer delay the closure beyond the 30th of September, adding that it does not have the ability to bear any further financial risk after that date. British American Tobacco has announced changes to its management board. The cigarette maker has named a new regional director for Asia Pacific, Middle East and Africa. Michael Dejanisic will step down from the role at the end of December and hand over to Pascal Mulemeester, who is currently president of Western Europe at Barry Callebaut Group. Supermarket Income REIT has acquired a Tesco supermarket in Kent. That's as it pursues earnings-enhancing acquisitions to deliver a growing and fully covered dividend over the long term. The deal carries a price tag of £54.1 million, reflecting a net initial yield of 7%. Tesco has traded from the site for more than 30 years and uses the store as an online fulfillment hub with 14 home delivery vans, as well as offering click and collect services. The Council for Medical Scheme has raised the prospect of legal action against medical schemes found to have practiced racial profiling against black service providers. The regulator says it will seek advice on whether an approach to the Equality Court can be made or if a class action should be instituted. This follows the release of the Section 59 panel report, which found that 3 medical aids, Discovery Med Scheme and the Government Employees Medical Scheme practiced racial profiling to detect and punish fraud. In international news, China's exports regained some momentum in June while imports rebounded as firms rushed out shipments to capitalize on a fragile tariff truce between Beijing and Washington ahead of a looming August deadline. Here's more detail in this report.
Chinese ports got busy in June as Donald Trump's trade war continued to sow uncertainty. Figures out showed exports rising 5.8% on the year, beating forecasts and the previous month's number. Imports also gained after falling in May. Firms seemingly rushed out shipments to make the most of a fragile truce between the US and China. Now businesses wait to see if the two nations can agree to a durable trade deal, or if duties will once again soar. Beijing has an August 12th deadline to agree a full pact. The latest figures were set out at a news conference in Beijing.
据了解，目前中美双方团队
An official said dialogue was the only route to agreement and warned that China would not succumb to coercion. Even with a deal, economists warn that the country could be hit by Trump's move to impose sweeping new global tariffs from August 1st. Though the country itself is not targeted, the US president has set steep duties for other nations used for the transshipment of Chinese goods. That includes a 40% levy on US-bound products moving through Vietnam. Such tariffs could hit Chinese makers looking to avoid US duties by rerouting exports. Trump has also threatened a new 10% tariff on imports from members of the so-called BRICS group of developing nations, which includes China as one of its founders.
And European Union ministers agreed to prioritize negotiations with the United States to avoid threatened 30% levies that the EU trade chief said would wreck transatlantic trade.
The EU agreed to prioritise trade talks with the US to avoid crippling tariffs. That's after President Donald Trump said he would impose 30% levies on most EU imports from August the 1st, an amount which the EU trade chief said would wreck transatlantic trade. However, diplomats said there's still time to hammer out an agreement to prevent this. European Trade Commissioner Maroš Šefčovič had said he'd sensed that talks with the US were approaching, quote, a good outcome for both sides. But this new tariff threat on Saturday had, quote, created a new dynamic.
If you're talking about 30% or 30% plus, there will be a huge impact on trade. It will be almost impossible to continue the trading as we are used in a transatlantic relationship. And if you look at the impact this would have, so I have to say the transatlantic supply chains would be heavily affected on both sides of it.
He said the EU would need to prepare for all outcomes, including countermeasures. The Commission has already agreed to a package of potential tariffs on $24.5 billion worth of US goods, but has proposed suspending this package for now. It's also likely to seek a green light for a second package that'd hit $84 million worth of US goods. Some EU ministers have agreed with this suspension, saying it's too early to impose countermeasures.